I had always thought interstellar diplomacy was a dignified, careful, and logical affair. As the junior envoy of the United Earth Coalition, I was trained to negotiate, to observe, to blend in, but never to charm. That last word had echoed in my mission briefing like a secret curse. Charm the AlienPrincess. They'd even handed me a dossier, a 3,000-word analysis of her habits, her interests, and what humans might call her tastes. Her name was Princess Virus, heir to the Solarian throne. The Solarians were an insectoid species, tall, sleek, covered in shimmering carapace, with compound eyes that reflected light in colors we could barely name. Their language was a melody of clicks, trills, and hums, and though I had spent months in a specialized simulator trying to mimic it, the reality was always a little terrifying. I remember my first encounter like it was etched into my nerves. The observation deck of the Solarian Palace was a cathedral of crystal spires and floating lights. I had been briefed. She preferred humans who appeared confident yet vulnerable, knowledgeable yet unassuming. She responds to sincerity more than flattery, my mentor had whispered. But she cannot resist curiosity. Virus emerged from the shadows, or rather, from a light that bent around her form. She moved like liquid crystal, her limbs folding and unfolding in ways that defied human perception. Her eyes, thousands of facets, scanned me, pausing at every detail, my posture, the way I breathed, even the faint tremor of my fingers.
Human, she said.
Just that one word, repeated like a soft drumbeat against my skull. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't even a question. It was recognition. And that was the moment I realized I was already under her scrutiny. The days that followed were an exercise in controlled chaos. The palace staff treated me with polite curiosity, whispering about the princess's fascination. She has not called a visitor human in centuries, one aide confided. You've captured her attention in ways none of us can explain. I attempted small talk at first. I discussed the architecture of the palace, floating crystalline towers, gardens suspended in zero-gravity domes, luminescent vines that pulsed with energy. Virus would tilt her head, listening, and then hum softly, clicking in a rhythm I didn't understand. Human, she said again, sometimes once, sometimes twice in succession, but always with an undertone that made me feel unique. The more I tried to adhere to my mission, to charm her, the more unpredictable our interactions became. She wasn't impressed by the displays I had rehearsed. She wasn't interested in my knowledge of Solarian politics or my proficiency in quantum linguistics. It was simpler than all of that.
She wanted me.
One evening, I found myself in the palace gardens, a gravity-neutral dome of floating flora. The air shimmered with bioluminescent pollen, drifting like tiny galaxies. Virus appeared without warning, her form materializing in a ripple of refracted light. You are human, she said again, softer this time, almost contemplative. Yes, I admitted, unable to resist the simplicity of honesty. I am human. She hummed, circling me, wings vibrating faintly. You are different from the others. You do not fear me. That stung more than it should have. Fear in her world was a form of respect. To not fear her was bold, almost reckless. Yet I felt an unexpected surge of confidence. I am here to understand you, I said. Not to fear you. She paused, and the hum that vibrated from her thorax seemed almost like laughter. Curiosity, unusual for a human. You fascinate me. I swallowed hard. The mission briefings hadn't prepared me for fascination. I had been trained to smile, to nod, to appear charming. But here, none of that mattered. My humanity itself had become my weapon. Weeks passed. Our encounters became increasingly private. Virus would hover near the floating gardens, showing me the intricate mechanics of Solarian energy conduits, explaining how their hive mind operated in the palace without ever fully merging minds with her subjects. She called me human so often that it became a term of endearment, or at least something close to one. Other diplomats began to notice. The Solarian court was notoriously formal, yet whispers spread. The human envoy had not only charmed the princess, but seemed to occupy a place in her attention that no Solarian had in centuries. I tried to maintain my professional composure, but even I couldn't deny the growing connection. One night, after the Council of Ministers had adjourned, Virus and I remained in the palace observatory. A view of two suns setting over the floating crystal gardens stretched beyond the transparent walls. "You are human," she said again, almost reverently this time. "Yet you see more than any Solarian ever has." I turned to her. "What do you mean?" She extended a delicate limb, touching the edge of my sleeve as if testing its substance. "You understand the fragility of life, of time. You notice the impermanence. This amazes me." Her voice, or hum, was layered, like 1,000 soft chords blending into one. I had no words, only a strange sensation that we were connected in ways beyond diplomacy. I realized then that the mission briefings had misled me. It wasn't charming her. It was simply being human. But diplomacy has a way of intervening when matters grow personal. One morning, the High Chancellor of Solaria summoned me. His voice buzzed like electricity across the crystalline hallways. "You, human," he began, "have altered the princess's behavior. This is unprecedented." "I did not intend," I started. "Intentions are irrelevant," he interrupted. "She now calls you human constantly. It is disruptive. You must either leave or formalize your position." I froze. Formalize? The Solarians had no equivalent of human engagement, let alone romance. Yet the implication was clear. My bond with Virus was no longer casual observation. It had become something else. The turning point came during the annual luminous convergence, a celebration where the twin suns aligned and the palace gardens glowed with amplified bioluminescence. Every member of the court gathered, floating gracefully through the domed corridors. I had been advised to present a gift, a token of human ingenuity. I brought a small device, a crystalline orb that displayed holographic constellations in motion. Virus received it with something I can only describe as awe. "Human, you give light to the darkness," she said, turning her multifaceted eyes on me. "This is beautiful." In that moment, I felt the weight of the mission collapse into insignificance. The political objectives, the strategic gains, the diplomatic pressures, they all faded. All that remained was the princess, hovering before me, calling me human, with an intensity that made my heart pound. I realized then that our connection had become symbiotic. She had drawn me into her world, and I had brought a fragment of humanity to hers. Days later, she made her first unambiguous gesture. In the private floating garden chamber, she hovered before me, wings folding in ways that indicated a ceremonial posture. She hummed a rhythm I had not encountered before, a rhythm of invitation. "You human," she said, voice layered with anticipation. "You must stay." The weight of those words was staggering. To stay in the palace indefinitely was unprecedented for a human. To refuse was impossible. I nodded, my throat tight. "I will stay," I said. Her compound eyes glimmered. "You are mine," she whispered, though not in a possessive way. More like acknowledgement of a bond that transcended species, protocol, and expectation. I smiled, and for the first time, the word charm seemed irrelevant. I had not charmed the princess. I had simply existed, and that had been enough. In the weeks that followed, Virus and I adapted to a new normal. She called me human constantly, not mockingly, not as a label, but as an affirmation. The palace staff accepted it, though some whispered about the strange human who had so thoroughly enchanted the princess. We explored the Solarian cosmos together, floating through zero-gravity gardens, observing distant nebulae, deciphering the melodies of star clusters. She taught me her language not as a diplomat, but as a partner, a student, and sometimes a mischievous peer. Each time she said human, it felt like a reminder that I had a place in a universe that had once felt overwhelmingly alien. And yet, the most extraordinary moment came when the Council of Elders convened to formally recognize our bond. They were hesitant at first, struggling with centuries of tradition. But Virus, in a display of courage and sincerity I had come to admire, addressed the council. "This human," she said, sweeping a limb toward me, "has taught me what it means to see, to feel, to connect. I name him mine. Let him remain by my side." There was silence. And then, after what felt like an eternity, the elders acknowledged her decision. I was no longer just a diplomat. I was a part of the Solarian world. In the quiet aftermath, she hovered near me, her wings brushing softly against the crystalline walls. "Human, you are my light," she murmured, the cadence of her voice like a lullaby made of starlight. "And you," I replied, heart hammering, "are my world." From that day onward, the word human became more than a descriptor. It became a name, a term of intimacy, a connection that no language barrier could sever. I had not charmed the alien princess, as my mission demanded. I had done something far more difficult. I had simply been human, and in return, she had simply been herself. In the end, it was never about charm. It was about honesty, curiosity, and the courage to exist as oneself in the face of a universe that often demands we perform roles. I was a human in a palace of crystal and light. She was a princess in a world beyond imagination. And together, we discovered that some bonds defy logic, politics, and even species. The Solarians still whispered. Other diplomats still gossiped. But when Virus looked at me and said, "Human," I knew that in all the stars and the voids between them, I had found my place. And the word would echo for the rest of our days. Human. Not a title, not a label, not a mission, just us.